My name is Carolyn Whiteman, and I have the honor of hosting this evening's OPA call. And for those of you who don't know what OPA is, it's a very deep part of our heritage with our business. OPA stands for Organic Products Associates. And the reason that that name was created was from our wonderful sponsor, who I know the Sherpans and some of the others of you know very well, Mary and Gary Loomis. And I was first actually brought into their organization when they lived in Beverly Hills, the Beverly Hills. And so a lot of the people in Southern California were people that I was originally introduced to early in the days of the business. And Mary had this vision that was the philosophy from Shackley and Dr. Shackley, and the value of the products was going to have such an expansive scope that it would grow beyond the place where we would be known as the Loomis organization, because they were our mentors. But she had the vision to be able to see that the organization would grow beyond that. So now some of you are in the Sheraton organization or the Hurley organization or the various other Medorans and some of the various branches of our Shackley family. And so Mary and Gary had the wisdom to call this OPA. And OPA stands for Organic Products Associates. And that is the umbrella of the family heritage of our organization, which is now has the face of Rob Loomis. Rob is second generation. When I first knew Rob, when Mary and Gary were living in Beverly Hills and I was first sponsored, Rob had just left for Harvard Law School. So he's continued on to very other active careers, and he is now the head and the face of our Shackley Loomis organization, which I believe has 10 different master coordinator in our line. So we're very proud of our heritage, and many of you on this call consider ourselves cousins or somehow related. And of course, one of the nice things about our Shackley family is that the culture of our business is we do not have to be affiliated personally with the people that we work with and are mentored by. So many of us have friends and colleagues that are not in the same business organization who have become very strong friends, mentors, advocates, coaches, and so on. So we're very proud of our heritage, and we welcome anyone who chooses to join us and listen in. That's a part of our heritage. So along with Master Coordinator Ray Medoran tonight, and possibly a couple of others, I would like to just share our topic for tonight. What occurs to me is that we're in a time of many, many transitions. And certainly there are transitions going on in the business and the structures and the way the focus, the way the business is put together. But in addition to that, I mean, there are changes going around all around us. And so what it occurred to me is that one of the biggest values that we get to have in the long-term sustained commitment to our business is the skills that we either have had to learn or are currently being challenged to learn so that we can become effective as leaders and be effective in our world. And so I have several things that I get to share tonight, and I'm happy to have Ray. I think Barb is going to come and join us also. And Ray, I'll bring you in a minute with some of your story, but I want to start out with a story from one of our other adopted mentors, Charlene Fike. She was not able to join us tonight for another commitment, but I'd like to tell this story to each one of us. Charlene started her business as a college student, literally in college. And She had been introduced to the business through Doug, I'm not even sure if they were married at that point. She'd been introduced to the Shackley business through Doug and his family, who already had an existing business. And Charlene saw a big picture where the business could create a structure and an ethical foundation for something that stands alone in its value, but also could provide the opportunity for them to do lots of other things. But she was a college student, and she said, I don't know anything about business, but I can see there's something here. And so when you ask Charlene what her primary focus was, first of all, was to build an organization. They became coordinators relatively quickly, and I think qualified for Montreux, or no, it wasn't Montreux, for Monte Carlo, which at that point, the rank of coordinator required 4 first levels, all of whom are doing at least 3,000 volume. And they set their mind to be there, but she said, I don't really know how to do it. And here's the tool, the very first tool that she did. She said, I tuned in. Now, of course, this is before you would do it quite as easily on our phones. She said, I tuned into Tony Robbins, and I put Tony Robbins in my back pocket, and he walked along with me all day long, teaching me, guiding me, giving me encouragement, keeping me from getting stuck. And it was because of that commitment to working with Tony Robbins that she said she was able to begin to elevate her own skills, her own thinking, so that even as a college student who was obviously just in her 20s, she was able to create a very effective business. And so that's really kind of skill number one. And so here's what I would like to invite us to do, and then I'll come back to that. I'd like to invite us to, you can plug in to Tony Robbins. And if you have not ever been to one of his programs live, they are sensational. We have now grown enough so that we can actually get access to him many times on all kinds of other forums. But this one, if you go to, somebody can put it in the chat if they want, and it is called GameHasChangedEvent.com. And this is a 3-day program, which Tony Robbins is offering for free, which begins on Thursday. And he's doing it with Dean Graziosa, and I'm sure many other people. But it's something that he does periodically. Anyone can plug into it. And I don't remember the exact times. I'm thinking it's like starts at like 1 o'clock Eastern or something, 1 to 4 Eastern. But it doesn't matter, because if you enroll in the course, which is no cost, if you enroll in that, they will generally give you a replay, certainly for that day, people in different time zones. And when he introduces it, he'll say, well, there are only people here from 153 countries around the world or something. So we can't get too fussy about saying what my time zone is. So this is an invitation for us in skill number one, or invitation number one for us to take on the fact that in order to have an effective business, we get to be effective leaders. And in order to be effective leaders, we become effective by who we plug into and where we get our ideas. Now, what I will add as an aside is, of course, Tony Robbins has been actively around for decades. And many of us, some of the so-called leaders, have changed over time. I mean, there's Brian Tracy, and there's been Wayne Dyer, and there are all kinds of other thought leaders that we can plug into. And so my invitation to us all is, it doesn't matter who it is. What it matters is that we find someone that we can plug into that gives us inspiration, insights, encouragement, leads us to new ideas, challenges us, gives us some camaraderie, because that is probably the number one skill that we all get to grasp on if we are going to create an effective business. So let me stop for a minute. Ray, any thoughts or comments to add to that? And then let's bring in your background.
No, I think that's great. It's going to be Thursday is going to be,
I think it's
Tony
Thursday,
Robbins.
Friday. Yeah, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, I think.
Okay.
And it's free.
It's free.
So
Yeah, that's great.
if you just go
Tony
to that
Robbins is
site,
outstanding. Yeah. He is so
um,
good.
he'll bring in different kinds of people. And no, you don't have to be on it all the time. And, you know, there may be some, I'm sure they will be promoting the opportunity to attend other events. But this is one of the skills that we all get to plug into, is who's educating us, who's guiding us, who's inspiring us, who's leading us. And that's just one of them. And you can't get a lot more effective than Tony Robbins. The only actually live program that I've done with him is Eddie and I did a financial wellness program with him in California a number of years ago. And one of our business leaders has been a Tony Robbins coach. And so all of these skills are just so transferable to everything that we do in our business.
Yeah, we've seen him a number of times on GoPro as well. Yeah, he was
Yes,
always one of the main speakers that they brought in for GoPro. So yeah,
yes.
we've seen him in live quite a few times there. So yeah, he's great.
So that's really challenge number one, is for us to find someone to plug into. And I give thanks to Charlene for that initial inspiration on what. So just imagine a 20-some-year-old walking around with, you know, now we can do it with a phone in our pocket and having it live streamed or videoed or whatever. But anyway, that's thought number one. Then, Ray, I'd like to invite you in to talk about, all of this is very common for you because you actually joined the business. Obviously, you've been a part of it as long as Barb has, but you came into an even more active role after having spent some decades working in Silicon Valley at very high end, working with very serious companies and serious business. And so you've talked about the skills and the training and things that you had in your personal career that were a part of your professional life before you joined Shackley, and then some of the ways that that's transferred. So does that give you something to pick up on then?
Yeah, I think so. Um, yeah, you know, there are some parallels between the corporate world and Shackley, in the Shackley business. And one of those things was, you know, I knew early on in the corporate world is that I wanted to run my own organization. And you've got to work your way up, just like in Shackley, when you start as a member or an ambassador and you work your way up all the way to presidential master coordinator. And I had to learn all of the different skill levels in human resources, from employment to compensation to training to employee relations, all those things that I had to go through to learn in order for me to finally get to the top of where I wanted to go, which was the vice president of human resources and a corporate officer. And it takes you longer, I believe, in the corporate world than it does in Shackley. I mean, that was 24 years that it took me to get from starting out as a employee relations assistant, specialist, all the way up to vice president. And the other thing that I did was, you know, I talked to a lot of people, you know, like I would talk to vice presidents, I would talk to CEOs, I would talk to vice presidents of HR. You know, what is your day like? You know, what changed when you became vice president of human resources? You know, what is different now than it was before? What are some of the challenges? What are some of the things you like about it? What don't you like about it? And I would talk to them. I would talk to CEOs and say, if you're looking for an HR VP, what are you looking for in that person? What kind of person are you looking for? You know, same thing as in Shackley. When we go to the global conferences and the leadership seminars and things like that, we always talked. I always talked to the people that were there that were already at those levels to find out what were they doing, how did they get there. You know, those are the parallels I see between corporate and the Shackley business. There's a lot of differences as well. Uh, and I think probably Robert Kiyosaki really explains it well with the cash flow quadrant, where you have the employees and you have the business owners and then you have the entrepreneurs and you have the investors and things. So, you know, very, very, very different. But the tax thing is one of the things that really hit me when I joined Barb in the business. I think one of the first question I asked her, I said, you know, what is our profit margin? You ever see the deer in the headlights? Um, and and she knows now what profit margin is and things like that. And I asked her about the taxes and things, because one of the things early on, even before I joined her in the business, was I had a lot of stock options being a corporate officer and a vice president. And as I was selling those stock options, that really brought up my gross income. And back in the early days, Barb was doing well in Shackley, but she was able at times to show the business at a loss, legitimately as a loss. She wasn't actually making a loss, but with all of the deductions that are legitimate for home-based businesses, Barb would show the business as a loss. That loss came right off my gross income. We saved thousands over the years while while I was selling stock options, and my salary was continuing to go up as well. So we've got people that have come into our Shackley business for that reason, for the stock, because of the legitimate deductions you have with the stock stuff. So that's great. Hey, I'm going to read one thing to you because I think it's really important. Sandy Botkin, he does a book. It's called "Lower Your Taxes Big Time." You probably can't see that, but this is Sandy Botkin, and "Lower Your Taxes Big Time." Every year he does a new one. So this is our Bible. You know, now we have a CPA. You know, and I think that if you're going to be in Shackley and you're going to be really professional about it, you got to have a CPA. They are the experts. But also at times, you really have to train and help your CPA understand, because a lot of them don't understand all of the legitimate deductions you get with a home-based business. So you've got to train them and help them as well. We're fortunate that we found somebody early on that understood the home-based businesses and the legitimate deductions, because some of these CPAs you talk about, well, I'm going to take this deduction here. No, oh no, you can't do that. No, that wouldn't be good if you do that. You know, you're going to get, and it is very legitimate. And so those are the things. So what you find in this book are all of the things that are legitimate deductions. You know, not that you're going to do your own taxes, because like I said, you really want to have a CPA that's going to be doing those things for you. But you can start going through it and finding out where those deductions are and what things that are legitimate that you can take. Let me read you one thing that this is chapter 1 of Sandy Botkin's book. He says, why you would be brain dead not to start a home-based business if you don't already have one. Explains why everyone who is employed should have some kind of business, preferably a home-based business. If you don't have one, you are losing thousands each year. Sandy Botkin. Sandy Botkin was a former IRS attorney and senior tax law specialist. Guy knows what he's doing. He really, really does. So I would encourage anyone to get his book every year, because things change and the tax laws, things change like that as well. if you take a look at the at the cash flow quadrant and you look at the employees, here's the difference between employees and entrepreneurs that own and operate their own home-based businesses. When you get your paycheck and you're an employee, they take the taxes out right now first. That's the first thing to do. They take out the taxes. Then at the end of the year, you do your taxes and whatever deductions you have, then you may get some money back. You may still owe, which is probably most of the time, or you're really, really lucky and you don't owe anything at all. But most of the time, you're actually, you're actually paying more taxes that have already been taken out of your check. Here's the difference when you own and operate your own business. There are no taxes taken out. We get 1099s from the company. So that is our gross income for the year. And then we take our gross income and we apply those against the legitimate deductions that you have with a home-based business. And if you make $60,000 a year in Shackley, that is almost equivalent to $90,000 if you were an employee in a company because of the legitimate deductions. The tax code and the tax deductions that we have in the home-based business, the tax code was written for people like us in the home-based business. They've made some changes over the years for the sole proprietors, the lawyers, the doctors, the Eddie Whitemans, the people that own and operate their own business and things, and they didn't change anything with the home-based businesses. They didn't take away any of our deductions. They did take away some of the deductions in some of these other areas, but they did not mess around with home-based business deductions. So that was really, really important. Let's see, is there anything else I wanted to
Ray, there's a, on the screen, I think I put down at the bottom, there's a simple diagram that shows what you're saying is that if you want to expand on that one, and then I'll go through some of the things, some of the topics that people could use.
Yeah, this is the employee, and the home-based business entrepreneur. So you can see where the income, they're both at 50,000, deductions, with deductions in the employee was 10,000, amount tax on 40,000, 10,000. Here, there's no deductions, amount tax on 50,000 and taxes owed 12,500. Oh, this is the employee. I'm sorry, on that side, and this is on the other side there. It's actually it's better than that slide. I'm telling you, it really is better than that slide, because there are so many great deductions that you can take. If you will get a Sandy Botkin's book, go through it, find out, and then get with your CPA. And if they have a question about it, I show them the book. I show them Sandy's book. If they say, well, we're not sure about that one, I said, well, let me show you page 32 on that. And so we're training and helping train our CPAs. I mean, that's what we're doing. If you get a CPA who says, you really can't take all these deductions you're talking about, the next thing you want to do is look for a new CPA. That's what you want to do, because they're out there. They understand our business, and you will get the benefit of every single deduction that you have coming that is legitimate. So, Carolyn, that's what I have.
No, that's excellent. Why don't we stop for a minute? I have something that I can give a list, but why don't we stop for a minute and see, does anyone have any thing that they would like to add or questions? Not that we can necessarily answer them, but does anyone have any questions or comments on this? Do you see how the value of understanding this is important for us as we approach people about business possibilities? Because they may very well be possibilities that they have never considered. let me pull up just there. Here's a list. This is from one of Sandy's books that goes off of Sandy's ideas, but I just thought I would bring this up as a, hold on here, bring this up with some of the topics. Let's see, which one is this? Here are just some of the topics and some of the ways that, oops, sorry about that. Hold on, hold on. Well, hang on here a minute. These are just some of the ways that, and maybe, Ray, this maybe triggers just a couple of things that you might want to refer to in terms of the topics that are ways that our business can support us in increasing the income that we actually take home from this list. Can you see it? Or did I put it up?
Yeah, no, I can see it. Yeah, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
going through it. Yeah, going through it. Yeah, I mean, that's what Sandy was saying. Everyone needs a side business. You know, he said you got to be brain dead not to have one. You know, unless you just love paying taxes, I guess, you know, then you probably wouldn't care. Um, Vehicles, you know, we keep, Barb and I each keep in our car, we keep a little notepad and we write down every time we leave, every time if we're going on business, my starting mileage, ending mileage, and then where we're going and what we did. So that we have that, you know, that was the other thing that maybe talk about is that you've got to document all of this as well. It's really, really important to document it if you're ever going to, you know, have the IRS come and ask you about some of the deductions that you're taking. They will do that occasionally. They love to do it for home-based business people. They trying to get you as much as they can, but they're legitimate. They're legitimate deductions, and we take those. So that's another thing we do with our car, the office, our phones. You know, all of our equipment, our computers, everything else, we write off. So everything in our office, we take a percentage of our house where we have Shackley products, where we store them, our office, and all of and it explains in Sandy's book exactly what you're allowed to look at in terms of the square footage of your home for the business and how that's calculated and everything. And so like our telephone bill, we'll take off, I think it's what, 18, 19%, whatever it is, whatever our square footage is, we'll take that off of our bills, our gas bills, our, you know, just about everything. Um, Hire your kids. We hired our kids when they were growing up, when they were in grade school and high school. They did work for Barb and did a lot of the administrative kinds of things and stocking when the products came in, because you know, at that point in time everything came to us. You know, it wasn't shipped directly from Shackley. It was shipped to the supervisors and business leaders, and then we had to repackage it and ship it out to people. So that the kids did that. I wrote up job descriptions for them so that if they were ever asked about, you know, well, why are you paying your kids and what are you doing? What are they doing? I had a job description for each one of them. And so we could write off what we paid the kids to help us in our Shackley business. Um, let's see. Healthcare, same thing. We write off part of our healthcare. I don't know. That's about all I can think of right now, Carmen.
Well, Ray, you've done such a good job with this, and what I think is really a core part of our talk this evening is that when we take a look at our Shackley business, most of us didn't come into this with a business background. And even in your case, Ray, like you said, you spent 20 some years in Silicon Valley training, teaching yourself and being mentored yourself within your business to be open to these kinds of ideas. So when we talk about what are the skills that we get to take on of leadership, one of the skills is curiosity and the willingness to take on topics like taxes, like understanding these different items, like personal development, like one of the other things that we can talk about, like the cash flow quadrants, is taking on those things with a curiosity about how can this relate back to my business. I'll give you a couple of simple examples. In my case, in fact, I just had a funny conversation with someone yesterday at the dog park. And there was a fellow at the dog park that said, well, what kind of work do you do? I know what your husband did, and what work do you do? And I said, I don't know, I had a health and wellness business or something. And he said, well, did you graduate from college with a science background? I said, heck no. I said, the last course I had to take in order to get my degree to get out of college was the last science course I took. And I wasn't going to take biology. I wasn't going to take physics. I wasn't going to take chemistry. I wasn't going to do any labs. I took a geology course, and that qualified me for the last checklist on science. So it was almost funny to think I didn't know anything about science or health and wellness, and I certainly didn't know anything about business. So when we think about what are some of the things that we get to expand into, one of them is understanding some more of the tools of our trade. But the other one is, just as you said, Ray, is understanding some business concepts. I didn't understand tax stuff, and I don't pretend to understand it now. But what I do understand is, and I want to be really careful when we say this. I want everybody to be sure they hear. This is not a value judgment on the tax system. I didn't write it. We don't have to like it. That isn't the point. The point is we get to learn to live in the world that we're in. And so it's our job to figure out how might these tax benefits or how might this education apply to us. And the point is, as that other chart showed, if for every $1,000 that we earn as an employee at a job, the taxes are first taken out. So you don't come home with $1,000, you come home with, 600 or 700 or whatever they've taken out for whatever. So you have a decreased amount of money that you can actually play with. The difference when we understand this particular concept is if you opened up any kind of a business besides the one that we commonly have, if you opened up an auto repair shop or a printing business or a nail salon or whatever, you would, first of all, probably have to make an investment in that business, but you could not be in business without having some expenses that make it happen, whether it's a sign, whether it's having the tools and the equipment, that whether it's you certainly these days would have to have internet service, a phone, different kinds of computer systems, whatever you do for marketing, whatever there is for your physical location. You couldn't start a business without those things. And so when we change our hat and realize that what we have access to in creating our own business in our business is we have access to those very same rules. We just need to understand them. And we need to understand how they might apply to us legally, legitimately. And then what is the price we have to pay? Well, like you said, Ray, part of the price you have to pay is maybe you have to learn to take keep some records.
Yeah,
And
Joan, this is a benefit. I mean, we talk to people about Shackley. We talk to them about the products and how great they are. We talk to them about the compensation plan and that there is a way to earn some income. We talk about those kinds of things. But one of the things I don't think we talk much about is the tax benefits. And that's a real benefit. And we have had people come into our organization who came in and when you talk to them and say, why would you want to come into Shackley? And here's a list of things, travel could be on that. I think it's in the 5 gold questions or whatever it is. And one of those is tax benefit. And we've had people come in and say, when I first came into Shackley, it was because of the products, but I would do the business because of the taxes, the tax benefits. So it's a real benefit. And I don't think we talk to people enough about that benefit. It's there, it's legitimate, and it's real. And it's a huge benefit for a home-based business.
Well, and like you said, Sandy Bodkin's quote, and Sandy Bodkin is a tax attorney, he's a CPA, worked with the IRS for, I don't know, 25 years or something before he sort of came over to this side, teaching people how to understand the system. And so that's really what it is learning to be educated about some of the language, about some of the possibilities that are there, because we can walk by them and pay no attention, but that doesn't serve us if we're going to have an expanded business and expanded mentality of the leadership that we can provide to people. It's being able to have these kinds of conversations. So that's one of the huge benefits. Another one, which I had to back into also, was I didn't know anything about corporations. It's like corporations are for, people that own airlines and things like that. But I came to find out that that was an education that was important for me to have about different corporate structures. What is an LLC? What is an S Corp? What is a C Corp? Where do they fit? What are the benefits of these different ones? And what I can tell you is that over the time of being in our business, hold on, wait a minute, get my battery. Hold on a second here. There we go. Sorry. One of these benefits is forcing us to learn some of these different kinds of skills. So I'll give you a simple example. Some of you have heard, because some of us have been in the business for long enough that there really weren't even computers when we started. And I can remember that the language of taxes, or the language of corporations, or the language of computers was so strange that I had to figure out how I could start in first grade and try to understand the fundamentals. And I can remember going through a whole course that was explaining the different kinds of corporations. And it was one of those things where the first time I listened to it, it was like, I didn't get it, but I had to go back over and start sorting it out and trying to listen to it a little bit more and beginning to understand in that case, so I could have a sane conversation with the attorney, with the CPA, is, what are the suggestions, and to look at different corporate structures as how they might serve us. So the point of this conversation for us tonight is to realize that one of the hidden benefits of our business is the skills that we don't have to take on, but if we choose to become somewhat more knowledgeable and tapped into them, they can not only benefit us and our families, but they can also be really good prospecting conversations with people. Because like you said, Ray, you can be with someone who is like, well, I don't care about, but I'm not interested in, selling products like that. But if you're if you're savvy enough and you back up and you look at their profile, you know that the person has a business, you know that they probably have a not insignificant tax structure. So, hey, what would it be like if you could take, you want to give more money as a contribution to your charitable efforts, but you don't have the cash flow? What if you could save some money on your taxes and do that because you have a business? And I'm just making this up, but this is the kind of thing that I think if we help to expand our thinking, it puts us in a bigger place about what the business is that we're in and what we've been guided to. Ray, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I, uh, I just really think we're missing an opportunity with a lot of people if we don't talk to them about that. And LLCs are probably the easiest way, to form a corporation, if you will, limited liability corporation. You can do it online. It's not very expensive. And it's pretty intuitive when you go on to form an LLC and how you do it. You can I got through it, and Barb and I formed an LLC with ours, and our boys did the same thing with theirs and stuff as well. So there's a lot of things that you from a business standpoint that you learn as you grow in Shackley, and you go from member to ambassador to business leader, and as you're going up, and then you have people in your organization, and you're doing different things. You're coaching, you're teaching leadership styles, you're teaching a lot of things that you're doing from a leadership standpoint. It's an amazing experience, I think, to go through Shackley and to go up through the ranks, and um, and just learning everything you need to learn about business. You do it. You don't have to do it all at one time. You do it as you go, and that's the neat part about it. And then you get help from your upline. Sit down with them and find out what do I need to do to get my office up and running for a new person. Barb's is doing some of that right now, tonight, with some of the new people that we've got in the organization, some new members that are coming in, and a couple of new ambassadors that we came up with in May of this year, so that they are in the dream plan. And so yeah, it's a real learning experience, a business learning experience, and you become entrepreneurs. We call ourselves entrepreneurs, and we are, but you learn more and more about business as you go, and your uplines can all help you with that because they've been through it before. So ask them, don't, if you're not sure, if you have questions about how do I set up my office, how do I set up of the accounts of this red book, blue book, um, um, stuff for the accounting, all those kinds of things that you need to do. Ask your uplines, ask people about that. Learn about business as you go, and you'll become better at it over time.
Thank you so much, Ray. Let me let me let me open this up, and we may take the questions offline, but I'd like to ask. I see a couple of people, maybe Alan and Hannah Sherpin, if you guys have got something you would like to add or contribute to this, master coordinators. Any thoughts on this from you guys? Because I know you've always had a real business focus.
Well, that's true. Actually, from the very beginning, our actual efforts were primarily to find people to build a team, but we never put the products aside. That became paramount, of course. That's why I think we've always run high volume. But I think that the marriage of both is a great business situation. And I know they're talking about now for the future, get all your customers and then look for the people to the business. However, I think you can really still do both. I think you could build a customer base that's strong enough that I don't think we want to neglect by any means giving people this incredible business situation.
And I hope you
Yeah.
all took really good notes while Ray was speaking, because think of the tax benefits as another part-time job. And by that, I mean, that could be like $5, $8, $10,000 that instead of giving it to Uncle Sam, you keep in your pocket. Isn't that like another job? More income?
Yeah,
When in doubt, deduct.
yeah.
Yeah. And I always want to be very clear. This is not a conversation about what you have to do. This is a conversation about where you put your money. This is a conversation about being fiscally savvy, because if you're someone who says, I I would like to have more money to contribute to my church or my community or my kids' education or whatever it is, these are simply parts of the big picture that a financially educated person gets to learn. So this is not about saying we're trying to take money away from something. This is about being financially educated and then choosing how we want to use those resources. So this is a education perspective for all of us, not a judgment. But it's,
Also,
I mean, as I speak for myself, all these different kinds of topics that over the years I've had to learn. And I mean, I told this story once about computers were new. And I can remember buying a couple of computer magazines. I distinctly remember buying them in San Francisco airport on a flight back to Florida, and buying 2 computer magazines and not even understanding the topics. I had to start from the back of the magazine and hope that they wrote something simple enough for me so I could begin to understand the language. The same thing is true about corporations, not understanding about corporations. The same thing is true about just understanding things like these kinds of this education of being financially savvy. So that's what this invitation is. Is there anyone else we can really close here? But is there anyone else who either has perhaps a contribution or a story or something that they would like to add to this? I see Richard Beers, who also comes into the business with a number of years with financial and professional background in other worlds. Anything you'd like to add, Richard?
Well, when Kay and I got rolling in the business, and it was clear that there was going to be something of value, we went to an accountant who we knew from a networking group that we were in, and he wasn't ours when we joined, but they became a customer of ours. But as I asked him to do our taxes, he ended up becoming a distributor, and he orders several large orders every year. And because he saw that the tax advantages were covering those tax liabilities, which he hadn't already covered by his CPA business. And it also included hiring his children because they were kids then. So he likes the products for sure, but he became a distributor when he said, here are all the benefits you have available to you in the tax advantages, all of which Ray has covered, and there's still a few others. If you happen to own a sailboat or a motorboat, and there's ways you can depreciate that legally and honorably and justified to do the business, which was surprising because the U.S. government, it may have its faults and it may have its benefits, but it is definitely oriented towards business. And if you're in business, you get to take the same deductions that IBM or Google or anybody can take. So we were delighted that he joined as a director or ambassador years ago because of the tax advantages.
Great.
Great. Thanks, Richard. So as we, excuse me, as we close, I want to make sure that everyone
Stop
hears
it.
that the
Oh,
focus on
my
this
hand.
is our education,
Oh, stop
is
it. Stop me.
expanding our thinking. Hannah, you want to mention, yeah, you guys any, I'm happy to, if you got anything else. Our focus is just to expand our thinking, to expand the possibilities that for many of us on this call, this is not just a career, but it's a decades long connection with expanding education on things that I never would have dreamed of. And so this is part of our invitation. We didn't talk about personality styles. We can do that on another call, and learning about those kinds of things. But the next time that you have an opportunity to get some education, financial education or whatever, if the thought crosses your mind, I can't afford that, think about the possibility that if we zoomed back our personal structures in a way that we can create additional income with our business, but we also may be able to restructure the finances that we currently have so that that kind of education can be a contribution to our business. And so it isn't like I can't afford to do that or to take that course or whatever. It's almost we can't afford not to because of the bigger skills that we may be able to take in. So anyway, that's the invitation for us all as we look at all the many changes that we are facing within our Shaklee world and our Shaklee business. The one thing that does not change is the opportunity for us to grow as individuals, to grow as leaders, and to continue to expand the education that we have so we can better serve others, not just in the way through health and wellness and all of the things that we know our products and philosophy represent, but also ways that we can also begin to educate people on things that most people who are brought up in the employee quadrant don't have a reason to know. We get to learn these things and continue to educate ourselves. So thanks, everybody. Thanks, Hannah and Ellen for contributing, for Richard for contributing, and especially thanks to my wonderful compadre friend and wonderful mentor leader here, Ray Madoran, for sharing his wonderful skills. If you back up just for a minute, think about how would you be approaching someone about the business of so-called selling pills and soap to a guy who has worked as a vice president in human resources in the middle of Silicon Valley, in the midst of the just enormous things going on. How could you approach him and look at here it's Ray says, how can I not do this business? Barb, how come we're not taking, are we taking advantage of this? Are we taking advantage of that? So keep looking and remembering that that kind of education can be helpful for everyone. So thanks, everybody. Happy to be with all of you. Hope this is a contribution, and thanks you guys, especially to our contributors. And thanks to Scott Holdren. The replay of these calls, and hopefully we haven't said anything that's illegal and immoral and all the rest of that, but there was never an intention. We're not telling anybody what to do. We're trying to educate people. But the replay of these calls will be available within the next little while when Scott can clean it up for us on opastuff.org. And so we come back monthly. These meetings are hosted by other OPA leaders each month. So honored to be the one that was on the docket for tonight. And thanks to all of you for being here. Thanks.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Hey, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Thanks, you all. Good night. Have a great week.
That's right.